What's up YouTube, Dell here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you an update to Dark Worlds. Now this is involving the brand new cards, Ken and Gen, and it's also involving the brand new Super Typhoon, but this is optional, you don't have to play it. I'll show you some other options as well. So I'm just going to dive headfirst into the profile, show you exactly what we've got. So you start off with, of course, triple rainbow, all pretty standard on the lineups for your Dark Worlds. Triple rainbow, triple Genta, triple snow, double Grepher, and then one silver. I still like the one gold, not a lot of people do, but I do like the option. Quite like with Gen and Ken when you're playing ones and ones or like twos and twos, because you've got that option of a go first card and a go second card. I still like the options of having go first and go second. Still the one Cerulli, I think honestly now with Ken and Gen you definitely don't need this at 3 because you've already got other options to help you complete a hand rip if you need to. For the dangers, double Nessie, double Mothman, one Jackalope, one Thunderbird and one Bigfoot. So again, obviously 2 of the level 8s. Obviously these are better going second because they are the aggressive outs, and that's what you need to make sure you do with this deck. The only time that this deck will instantly lose is if someone try and like D-shift as you. We now no longer need to worry about Rise Heart, and Draw and Lockbird is a bit of an issue, but that's why I'm also main decking the Drag Down to the Grave, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on. For the non-fiend or like the level 4 fiends just to support, you've got the Zephyros Elite and the Catalyzer. So Zephyros acts as another danger because the idea is that you discard this off a danger, use this effect to return that danger to the hand, and obviously the reveal effects of the dangers are not hard once per turns, so you just constantly keep revealing them. It's only their discard effects that are hard once per turns. And then on to the 2 new additions. Now obviously we've got Gen and Ken. Now honestly I think like I'm still messing around with the ratios. I quite like the options of 2 and 2, but then obviously Gen is the most important one. Gen is the most important one because they both share technically the similar effect. That once per turn at the end of the battle phase, this card returns from the field to the hand, so they come back to your hand, which is great. You can only use each of the following effects of Ken or Gen once per turn. During your main phase, you get to special summon a Gen, so Ken will summon Gen, and Gen will summon Ken. Stick with me on this one. From your hand or deck to your opponent's side of the field in defense. Then Ken has the effect that if it is special summoned, your opponent, so that would be you, the player that has played the card, to draw 2 and ditch 1, which is great because obviously it's discard as effect, so it will trigger your Dark Worlds. And again, it makes your opponent discard a card. So the opponent is in the person you give this to discard a card. So not only does it give them a monster that is an opponent's monster activating effects, which means talents and thrusts and everything else is live, but it also gives you that ability to get the second effect off of the back of your Dark Worlds when you're discarding off of the back of Ken. So that's why Gen is the more important one, because this is obviously your normal summon engine. You could play Rotor if you want to, but you ideally going first, personally, you probably want to summon your, if you've got your place to go anyway, you can probably summon your Ken. And what that will allow you to do is if you use silver twice, you'll hand loop your opponent completely, and they'll have 1 card to try and break your entire board, which will probably be met with the Grepher. The ideal one is obviously normal summon Gen, special summon Ken to the field. That makes you draw 2, discard 1, triggering the effect of your Dark Worlds. And then what you're ideally trying to draw into is you'll try and draw into your thrusts or your talents, because by drawing into either of these, you're basically making your opponent activate a monster effect, which means talents effect is full on live, so you can steal, you can look at your opponent's hand, you can draw cards, and then so is thrust. And the best thing is, because your opponent will control a monster, the thrust will let you add that card to the hand. So your thrust gets you to your talents, but on top of that as well, your thrust can also get you to your drag down, and it can also get you into card destruction, and of course the 1 corridor. Now personally I think 3 corridor is way too much. I even feel 2 could be a little bit cloggy. Yes, it's amazing if you open it, but if you open up multiples, it really is terrible because it's not a monster that could be discarded off of the back of any of your card effects to give you more advantage. It's not a spell card that gives you further advantage in the graveyard, something like your Accession. So I feel 1 is enough, especially when you've got multiple ways of drawing into it and also searching it off of thrust. It's really, really important. The only thing you're really going to fear in a deck like this, where you're constantly drawing cards, is that Draw and Lockbird. And yes, of course, Drag Down to the Grave is great to see your opponent's hand, but if they draw that draw anyway, it's still going to cause you issues. So you can play other options in order to kind of negate that draw before you get to that place where they can activate it. Or what the Gen and Ken give you is you kind of go for the point of, okay, I've been drolled, so I'll normal summon the Ken, special the Gen to the opponent's field, and then that will make them ditch another cards. So then they're there playing for 3 cards, and you still have the ability to build up a board as well. For the last of the spells, 2 gates and the 1 archives. Obviously the gates, a lot of people play 3 of it. I can understand it. Me personally, I quite like only playing 2. I think 2 is more than enough for the pure fact that if I see a gate and I don't have an ability to get a fiend to the graveyard, or I don't already have a fiend in the graveyard, it's completely useless. Whereas that's where Genta comes into play, because Genta is just so consistent that Genta, I know a lot of people want to go, okay, cool, well, Genta, search out gate, activate gate, banish Genta, summon it back, bounce it back with Rainbow, activate again, get a second gate, use gate's draw effect again. But then to do that, you need to get another Rainbow or a Greffa to the graveyard to return the Genta back to the hand, then activate her again to get another gate. Yes, it can be done, but honestly, I don't think it's the greatest way, because you can't get the Genta, when you banish it, it doesn't summon itself back to the board. So it's very difficult to try and loop it around to go through all 3 gates in the first turn, whereas you can go through 2 gates very easily, and I think that's all you need. The last monster that I play is the one Diabolica. This could be any card you want. I did want to show you the monsters, but I kind of felt that the Gens and Kens leading into the Frost and Talents was applicable. You can play Allure if you want to. You can play Trade-In. You can also play a Kaiju in the main deck. Obviously, you could play Lava Golem as well, but that does clash because you're using your normal summon engine, like I said, for the Ken and the Gen, and that is kind of like your main new normal summon for this deck, because it gives you that ability to help complete a hand rip while also triggering your effects. Yes, you do give your opponent a monster, but going second, this will return at the end of the battle phase, or just making sure you pop it, bounce it, do whatever. The idea is you're giving your opponent a monster that activates an effect as if it is your opponent doing it, and that will then unlock additional effects of your Dark Worlds and, of course, Frost and Talents. So that's it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, of course, you can put SP Knight in if you want to. It's a very expensive card right now, so you need to be a little bit careful on it. So the only new card that I've really added to it is the new, basically, Anti-Zeus. So for those of you that don't know what Typhoon does, it requires 2 level 12 monsters, but you're never going to make it that way. During the turn, or the turn after, your opponent has special summoned 2 or more monsters from their extra deck. You can special summon this card by using 1 monster you control with the highest attack. So it doesn't even need to be an XYZ monster. The one thing you've got to remember is you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn. So while, I'm just going to read this because I'm trying to read this upside down as well. While this XYZ summon monster is on the field, neither player can activate the effects of monsters with 3,000 or more attack. And then once per turn, you get to detach a material from this card to return 1 monster from the field to the hand. So it's a nice little bounce. It's the ability that pretty much skill drains anything of 3,000 or above. So you do need to be a little bit careful when you start getting into your Greffa Dragon and everything else that starts getting attack boosts. But this is probably the only one you really worry about. Everything else has lower attack stats, and you're very easily able to kind of utilize this. The shame is the bounce back isn't a quick effect, so it's a very good go second option, but it's just one of them ones that if you need that skill drain and you can back yourself up with other stuff to play through your opponent's turn, you can do it that way. For the Link monsters, we've got the one Akashic, the one Cross Sheep, the one Muttrucker, and the one IP, all pretty standard here. If any of these cards you don't have access to, your other options, like I said, is SP Knight, but I mean, if you've got access to SP Knight, you can have access to any of this. Your other options are the number 68, this is just if your environment is graveyard heavy. Dark the Dark Charmer, I think, is another really kind of cool one as well. And then I also think Trispania is another cool option if you are against loads of back row decks. So carrying on with the rest of the extra deck, as they are just alternative options. The rest of the extra deck, of course, will be Unicorn, Goddess of the Underworld when you Fiend Lock yourself, 1 Appaloosa, 1 Zelantis. I still like the Zelantis and the Muttrucker combo, but again, if you don't like that, that is 2 of the flex spots, or less so the Muttrucker, but definitely the Zelantis you can swap around with. 1 Skull Dread, 2 of the Greffa Fusion, and then for your ranks you've got 2 rank 4s, Baguska and Daguerres, and then of course the last one is Hope Harbinger. So you've got your Spell and Trap Negate. This can be an aggressor if you want to, you can play it more XYZ focused if you want to, but I feel that these are pretty much mandatory for the draw discard effect, so you get more benefit off the back of your discarding your Dark Worlds. And then if you do get drolled but you still make a rank 4, just sitting on a Baguska can sometimes just win you the duel, because you sit on it, you play out the droll turn, and then you go back into it where you're just going to go absolutely ham with the deck. So that's it for the profile. I hope this has given you a couple of ideas on your own build. The Ken and Gen is all good, but if you do have any questions, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. As absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.